Welcome to the Jamesburg Presbyterian Church. Today is Tuesday, March the 9th, 2021. Good to know that you are watching on Facebook and on YouTube. Last week we began the book of Tobit. I did an overview of the book, and in that overview I addressed some of the primary themes in the book. One of the themes is retributive justice, or retribution, the theory of retribution, and we'll be taking a look at that particular theme as it starts to develop in today's installment. Today we're going to be taking a look at Tobit chapter 1 verse 1 through chapter 3 verse 6. I'll be telling you the story of Tobit and the dilemma that he finds himself in. Next week we'll take a look at chapter 3 verse 7 through 3 verse 17, and this is the story of Sarah. We're still shooting for a 7-week course all in all. So today the book starts by telling us that this is the story of Tobit, and we're told about the time period in which the story alleges it takes place. And this is after the exile. What has happened is Nebuchadnezzar the king of Syria has attacked the northern kingdom and taken the people into exile as slave labor. What we should remember is that shortly after Solomon's death, that was David's son, Israel split into a northern kingdom and a southern kingdom. The northern kingdom was comprised of 10 tribes, the southern kingdom of 2 tribes. The northern kingdom separated itself from everything having to do with the southern kingdom, including worship in Jerusalem. So the people in the northern kingdom, under King Jeroboam, set up 2 sanctuaries for worship. One was in Shiloh and one was in Dan, the city of Dan. What happened there is because they didn't have the Ark of the Covenant, Jeroboam put into both of those sanctuaries golden calves. Of course, this is reminiscent of the golden calf story from the book of Exodus when in the time of Moses. People in the south looked at the people in the north as being idolatrous. They were an abomination because of their worship. The reason I tell you this is because Tobit makes it clear to us that he did not participate in that worship in the northern kingdom. What he did is he would make journeys to Jerusalem to worship. When he went to Jerusalem, he would take gifts for the priests. He would take his tithes and offerings. 10% of everything that he made that year he would give to the temple. So we're told right from the beginning that he is working to do charity. Tobit is trying to follow the paths of truth and righteousness. Incidentally, in verse 3, the story turns into the first person singular with Tobit telling the story. When we get into the rest of the chapter, he tells us that he gives gifts every year of grain, wine, olive oil, pomegranates, figs, and other fruits. And these are given to the people or to the temple in Jerusalem. He attributes his following the law to his grandmother, whose name was Deborah. He tells us that when he became a man, he married a woman by the name of Anna. And in fact, Anna is from a tribe in Israel. One of the problems that happened when the people went into exile is they started intermarrying with the Assyrians. And this becomes a problem later on for Ezra and Nehemiah, who order that anybody married to a foreigner divorce that person in order to come back to the promised land. We find that Tobit has not done that. He has married a woman in his own lineage. They have a son whose name is Tobiah, and what Tobit continues to do is acts of charity. He gets a job. He believes that because he's doing all these good things, that good is going to come his way. So we see the beginnings of the theory of retribution. You do good, you get good. You do evil, evil comes your way. So he says that he got a job working in government. He was working for Shalmaneser as a purchasing agent. Shalmaneser was the emperor of the Assyrian Empire, according to the story. And from time to time, he would be sent from the city he's living in to Media. He's living in Nineveh. He was sent from the city of Nineveh to Media to buy things. And what he started doing is socking away money. In the event that something happened to him in Nineveh, he was socking away money with a relative in Media. Incidentally, Media is now in Iraq and Iraq. One of the other charitable things that he did is he gave food to the hungry, clothing to those who were naked, and he would bury people. Now, this whole burying people goes like this. After Shalmaneser's reign, Sennacherib became the emperor. And Sennacherib had waged a battle against Jerusalem and lost. He was humiliated by that loss. So what he did is he came back to Nineveh and took it out on the Jewish people there. And occasionally he'd have somebody arrested. He would have that person tortured and killed in front of him as entertainment. And then he would throw the body into the garbage dump or alongside the road. What happened is that Tobit would find these bodies and he would give them a proper funeral. It was an abomination for the Israelites to not take care of their dead. And in fact, there are even records in which the people of Israel would take care of a Gentile because the body was left unburied. They just believed that this very strongly, that this was an act of mercy and kindness that you could do for a person. What happens, though, and this goes back to retributive justice, you would think that because Tobit is doing all of these good things, that everything would just be great for him. But one of his neighbors sees that Tobit is burying these bodies, and he goes to the king and tells the king. The king then puts out a contract on Tobit's life. Tobit has to flee so that he can avoid arrest and not be executed himself. When he leaves, all of his property is confiscated, and he ends up with nothing except his wife and son. Less than 40 days later, that king is assassinated by two of his own sons. A third son, who was not involved in the assassination, rises to power, has his two brothers executed for killing his father, and he assumes the leadership of the Assyrian Empire. Ahikar is a government official, and he goes to the new emperor and tells the new emperor about how good Tobit was, and Tobit is restored to his original state, so that it would appear to us at this point in time that even though Tobit hit this bump in the road, that he has been restored. In the next part of the story, which takes up in chapter 2, I just need a page ahead, catch up with myself. Tobit, this is chapter 2, verse 1 through chapter 3, verse 6. Tobit is preparing for a Jewish holiday. He observes all the Jewish holidays, even in a Gentile land. And there is some question as to whether he has that obligation to do that, but he does it anyway. And he's preparing for the holiday of Pentecost. For the Jewish people, this is 50 days after harvest. It's a celebration of fine dining and kind of a feast. And what Tobit remembers is that part of his obligation is to find a poor person to celebrate this holiday with. So in order to teach his son about the importance of charity, he asks his son to go out and find a poor person. The son goes out, comes back without a person, but reports to Tobit that he has seen a man who has been murdered, and the body is on display, presumably nailed to a wall. The body is on display Tobit immediately rises, as we would expect, says that he will be back later. He retrieves the body when no one is looking, and brings the body to a place to bury it on his grounds. Now, Tobit is now ritually unclean, and on the third and seventh day he has to bathe. Even though he bathes after he does the burial, he's not going to go into the house and cause everything there to be ritually unclean. This way his family can still observe this Jewish holiday. So what he does is he stays outside. Imagine him sleeping in the backyard, if you will, and while he's sleeping, doesn't realize it, but he's sleeping where birds can drop their droppings, we'll call it, into his eyes. As a result, the book of Tobit says he has cataracts that develop. We might say that he has some sort of eye damage. He goes to doctors. The doctors are not able to fix him. As a matter of fact, their medical stuff makes it worse for him, and he becomes blind. Again, the theory of retributive justice, we would think that because Tobit is doing all of these good things, that good things should come his way. And here we're seeing bad things come his way. Anna, his wife, now has to become the person who earns the living for both her, Tobit, and also their son Tobiah. So Anna gets a job weaving cloth. She would do this presumably either from goat hair or from sheep wool, and she finds a vendor who will buy it from her. And apparently she's doing such an excellent job that the vendor not only pays her the amount promised, but gives her a goat to take home. And so Tobit comes back, or comes into the house, and he hears the bleating of the goat, and immediately accuses his wife of stealing the goat. His wife says, "No, I didn't steal it. It was given to me as a bonus over and above my salary." Tobit refuses to believe this explanation and once again accuses her of stealing the goat and tells her that she must return it to its original owners. So she turns around and turns on him and says, I thought all these good things that you were doing would result in good things happening to you, but that's not what's happening, is it? Bad things are happening to you. So maybe your deeds were not that virtuous after all, and your true character is finally showing itself. Tobit becomes grief-stricken. He goes outside and he prays a prayer to God. The prayer has some attributes that we would expect in the beginning. It starts off praising God for all of God's goodness. It goes on to talk about God's mercy and God's justice, and that God is reliable in doing these things. Then he goes on to say that he also knows that he comes from a sinful family, a sinful people, and that perhaps he himself has sinned. He says that now that he's in this predicament and all these bad things are going on, that there's only one thing left for him, and that is for God to kill him. So he's praying that God will take his life. Just backing up a little bit, when women, back in chapter 2, verse 11, when Anna gets the job, there are some things that women do in this time period, especially if they're widows, or if they want to make extra money, and that is they can cook, they can bake, they can clean, they can spin, and they can weave. Anna has chosen to weave. Incidentally, the commentary says that because of her family needs, Anna becomes the Bible's first working mother. She is portrayed as capable, independent. She is portrayed as strong. Usually, we would expect from at least this biblical time period, the writer to portray women in a different way than strong and independent and capable. but that's the case in this book. She is portrayed in that way. One commentator said that other commentators have compared Tobit to Job. Job was also a righteous man. Bad things happened to him for no good reason. And Anna is compared to Job's wife. This is from the Vulgate. This comparison is made, and it's made by the rabbis. The difference between Anna and Job's wife is that Anna is angry with Tobit. Job's wife is angry with God. But aside from that, we can draw some comparisons there. So this installment ends with Tobit distraught. He's lost his vision. He believes that his wife is stealing to provide for their living. He has now prayed to God that God just take his life and get it over with. So that's our installment for today. Not a long installment. I've been trying to keep these installments short. Next week we'll take up a new character's situation, and that's the situation of Sarah. And Sarah lives in Ecbatana, and we're going to meet her and the dilemma that she is facing. And she is also going to offer a prayer at the end of that installment. Tomorrow I will be here to do a devotional. I hope you'll tune in. I'm so thankful that to know that people are tuning in to these Bible studies. I do hope that you enjoy them and that you're getting something out of a book that perhaps you've never heard of before. Thank you very much. Stay tuned, and I will talk to you soon. Bye now.